You know that super cheap, trendy shirt you just snagged online? Yeah, it's got a story, and it's probably not one the brands are eager to tell. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain, go behind the scenes, and really look at the true human cost of fast fashion. And it all starts with one pretty tough question.
Okay, that's a jarring question, I know, but it cuts right to the chase. The truth is, exploitation is literally woven into the fabric of the modern fashion industry. It's something we've got to face. So to kick things off, let's just try to wrap our heads around the massive scale of this whole thing.
100 billion. Just let that number sink in. That's how many pieces of clothing the global fashion industry churns out every single year. It's a mind-boggling figure, right? And it feeds this non-stop cycle of buying, wearing once, and tossing. That kind of demand puts an incredible amount of pressure on, well, everyone.
And buried inside that massive system, an estimated 3.75 million people. That's how many are thought to be trapped in forced labor, just in the garment and footwear industry alone. And we have to remember, these aren't just statistics. We're talking about real people.
So what's driving all this? Well, this is the engine right here. The global apparel industry is worth a whopping $1.7 trillion. Trillion. With that much cash on the line, the pressure to make clothes faster and cheaper is just intense. And you know what? That pressure creates the perfect storm for exploitation to take root and grow.
All right, so to really get what's going on, we need to be on the same page about a couple of key terms. Let's quickly define what we're talking about here.
First up, modern slavery. And I want to be clear, this isn't something from the history books. It is happening right now. It's basically an umbrella term for any situation where someone is being exploited and can't just leave, because of threats or violence or deception. Think things like forced labor, where you're made to work against your will, or debt bondage, where you're trapped by a loan you can never, ever pay back.
And what's the business model that fuels this? You guessed it, fast fashion. It's all built on two things, making clothes incredibly fast and selling them for incredibly cheap. But think about it. When you're cranking out new trends every week and selling a t-shirt for less than your morning latte, something's got to give. And that something is almost always the person who made it. Their safety, their wages, their freedom. This model doesn't just allow exploitation to happen, it practically demands it.
And this quote, wow, it just puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? This came from an exposé way back in 1992. It found workers like Sadisha in Indonesia making just 14 cents an hour for a Nike subcontractor. So they did the math. To earn what Michael Jordan got for one endorsement deal, she would have to work for over 44,000 years. I mean, that just perfectly captures the insane gap between the money at the top and the value we place on the actual human beings making the clothes.
Okay, so why is this problem so hard to fix? The answer is buried deep inside the fashion supply chain. It's a system that's been made deliberately complicated and murky, which makes it the perfect hiding place for all this stuff.
This isn't a new problem. There have been these huge, shocking moments that really grabbed the world's attention, like that Nike exposé back in the 90s that led to huge student protests. And then, more recently, the absolute tragedy of the Rana Plaza building collapse in 2013. Over 1,100 garment workers died just making clothes for brands we all know. These moments really expose the deadly side of this constant race to the bottom. And here's the key thing to understand. This exploitation thrives in the shadows. A big brand might have a direct contract with one factory, right? But that factory then subcontracts the work to another smaller factory, and that factory gets its cotton from who knows where. It's like a giant tangled web. By the time you get down to the farms growing the cotton, most companies are just totally in the dark. In fact, get this, a shocking 40% of companies admit they have no idea who is supplying their raw materials. And it's down in those hidden layers where the really awful stuff happens.
So you're probably thinking, wait a minute, aren't there laws to stop this? And yeah, there are. But they often have some pretty big loopholes. And honestly, not a lot of bite.
Let's take a quick look at two big ones, the Modern Slavery Acts in the UK and Australia. They both require big companies to report on what they're doing to fight this stuff. But here's the kicker. With the UK law, a company can literally just say, we've done nothing, and technically, they've complied with the law. And the biggest problem? Neither law has any real financial penalties for not doing anything. So for a lot of companies, it just becomes a PR exercise.
And this chart really shows you what that looks like in reality. Even with these laws in place, a third of major fashion companies don't even meet the absolute minimum requirements. A quarter of them don't disclose anything about their supply chain. And maybe the most damning stat, nearly 2/3 of them don't even apply their own anti-slavery policies past their main direct suppliers.
That leaves millions of people totally unprotected and invisible.
This quote from Professor Jolyon Ford just nails it. He says, look, this isn't just a legal problem. It's a business model. It's an economic choice. Companies are cutting costs so much that forced labor almost becomes a predictable outcome. And if it's an economic problem at its heart, then the solutions have to be economic and technological too.
And this is where things start to get a little more hopeful. Because new technology is starting to give us a way to shine a light into these dark corners of the supply chain. So check this out. There's this platform called Supply Trace. It's basically an AI detective. It digs through millions of public import records to trace a product's journey backwards. It can follow a shipment from a port in the US, back through multiple countries, all the way to its starting point. Then, and this is the cool part, it cross-references that journey with on-the-ground reports of forced labor facilities, and it flags high-risk connections. It literally makes the invisible visible.
And I think it's important to say, the goal here isn't just to point fingers and say gotcha. It's about giving companies the information they need to actually fix their own supply chains. It's a tool that can help them make better choices and help policymakers write smarter laws.
Okay, so after all that, what can we do? As the people actually buying the clothes? Well, it turns out we have more power than we think. Every dollar we spend is kind of like casting a vote.
And there are some really practical things we can all do. The biggest one, just buy less stuff. Seriously, the easiest way to fight fast fashion is to just slow down. Let's make it cool to wear the same outfit twice. Shop secondhand, learn to repair the clothes you love, and use awesome resources like the Ethical Fashion Guide to check up on brands. And before you buy, do a quick search for a company's modern slavery statement. It tells you a lot. At the end of the day, it's about voting with your wallet and supporting the good guys, the brands that are actually trying to be transparent.
The whole system is set up to make sure we never have to think about the people who make our clothes. We end up wearing the results of this exploitation, and we don't even see it. So I guess the question that leaves us with is pretty simple, but it's a big one. Now that you know what's going on behind the scenes, are you willing to look a little closer?